Hey there, folks. It's Renessa Boley-Lane, and I want to welcome you to another conversation on creating your perfect work. If you follow me, you know I am all about equipping you to discover, design, and get highly paid to do work that you love, whether that means radically changing careers, launching your business, or bringing a big idea to life. So today, we're going to be talking about asking for what you want and negotiating how to get it. And so today, I'm honored to be sharing the platform with Sara Laschever. Sara has spent her career investigating the challenges that shape women's lives at work. She is an internationally recognized authority, and she's frequently cited in media. She's also the co-author of a book called Ask for It: How Women Can Use the Power of Negotiation to Get What They Really Want. So that's the formal stuff about Sara, but let me tell you the truth about why I really wanted her in this conversation. So because this whole series is about creating work you love, there are so many elements that come into play, and it has oftentimes less to do with talent and skill and ability, and a lot to do with our resourcefulness about getting people to buy into us, getting people to support us, connections, all kinds of things that come into play. And we find ourselves having to ask for stuff that maybe we're not accustomed to asking for. We find ourselves in places where we're a lot more dependent, when in the past we've been very independent. And we're finding ourselves having to step up and get what we deserve, whether it's salary or, contracts or charging what we're worth and all of those kinds of things. And so when I came across Sara's book, and I was like, yes, she's got to talk about this content. And so it was my mission to include her in this conversation. And I'm delighted that she graciously said yes. And she's got lots of golden nuggets that I think are going to really support you, elevate you, equip you, challenge you, inspire you. But I also think give us a sense of release and freedom as well, to be able to ask for what we need, both personally and professionally. So with that said, I want to welcome you, Sara. Thank you to the conversation, and thank you for being so gracious about sharing your thought leadership with us. I can't hear you now, Sara. Can you hear me?
Louder? Is that?
Now you're here. Okay.
All right.
Perfect. We've got you. So that being said, I always like to open the conversation, because this is a talk about creating your perfect work. And I love the audience to kind of hear, see, and feel what perfect work looks like for someone else. And so how do you know, Sara, that the work that you're doing right now is the work you're supposed to be doing? Like, obviously, this may not be what you do forever, even though you've been doing it for a really long time. But what gives you the certainty that this is your perfect work for now?
Well, I started out, and I continue to think of myself as a writer first.
Okay.
But when our first book, Linda Babcock's and my first book, Women Don't Ask, came out, I suddenly got asked to speak about it and teach workshops. And I found that I was actually pretty good at that, and I liked it. Mm-hmm. And that rather than just sitting in my office and, putting sentences together and making arguments and explaining things as beautifully as I could, there was something very rewarding about going out and talking to women in person. Mm-hmm. And getting this feeling that I was able to impart something to them that was really changing their lives. So that has become a really rewarding part of my work. I've traveled all over. I am never disappointed. Whenever I meet women, I'm like, you guys are doing such great work. Mm-hmm. You can do more. You can get more. You can be happier. Mm-hmm. And I can help you. So there's nothing better than that.
Awesome. So tell us why you wrote this book. I know, and if you want to parlay into the very first book and kind of segue into both, feel free. But what was the motivation behind writing the Ask For It book?
Well, so the first book, Women Don't Ask, really demonstrated for the first time that there is a genuine difference between men and women in their propensity to ask for things for themselves, and looked at the causes. It's really social science. I think it's very readable, accessible social science because I wrote it, but it's not about how to do things differently. Mm-hmm. It's not about interventions or whatever life changes. It's about culture. Okay. So after Women Don't Ask came out, we heard from a lot of women who said, yeah, I have that problem, so tell me what to do about it. So help me. So then we decided to write Ask For It, which is really more about how to do it. It's what we think of as a self-training manual. You can go through it and practice lots of different skills, reflect on your own issues, focus on the things that you need to work work on, do better,
Yep.
and even own the stuff that turns out you're pretty good at. Because it turns out that women actually tend to make very good negotiators when they're negotiating on behalf of other people.
Mm-hmm.
Very good at advocating for our employees, our clients, our employers, our causes, our children,
Mm-hmm.
because taking care of other people is a gender norm for women. And so we do that very well. So one of the things I like to emphasize is you have the skills, you know how to do it. It's just when it comes to doing it for yourself that you probably pull up short. So it's nice to know you're good at it, and then we can talk about what's blocking you from doing it as well as you could on your own behalf. And also talk about, I think this is a big piece of what your program is about. We're going to talk about asking for the things that are going to actually get you what you want, and not the things you think you should want, or the things that are easy to get, or the things that are straight ahead on your path, to really reflect on what your genuine goals are, your personal goals are, and then what could you ask for that's going to get you there.
Awesome. When we think about negotiation, oftentimes the first thing that comes to mind is like money, whether it's negotiating a salary or a contract. And that's critical because I'm about the money as well. But your book is even broader than that. And so even as I began to kind of pour through it, it wasn't just about money. It goes beyond that. So what do you notice? Well, first of all, what are the different places that this whole concept of negotiation actually applies? Because I think some of us need to be reminded that no, that is negotiable too. And so is that, and so is that. So help us understand kind of the lay of the land when we're talking about negotiation.
Well, one of the things I say right off the bat is assume everything is negotiable. Everything isn't negotiable, but so many more things are than we think. It's really a good premise to go from. So then everything's negotiable. The money is important. Obviously, money's nice. It's a necessity. But there are so many other ways in which women's careers or their personal lives are compromised or held back because they're not asking for the things that would make them work better. Okay. So one of the jokes I like to tell is there's a statistic, Linda Babcock, my co-author, found that 20% of women say they never negotiate at all. And I like to say if they have kids, I think that's probably not true. But, we all negotiate in our private lives, in our personal lives, but many women feel a lot of hesitation when it comes to the workplace. That said, there are lots of things you can negotiate at work. You can negotiate for not just a promotion and better salary, but different responsibilities or exposure to people who are doing work you're interested in, the opportunity to stretch your skills, go for more training, and things as simple as I need a better printer because it is slowing me down or it's mucking things up. I need a different piece of equipment. Or my life would work better if I could have an extra week of vacation, and I'm willing to trade some other perks, some other benefits in the package. I have young kids and I want to have more time to be with them. So resources, opportunities, titles, time, whatever might make you happier, make your life run more smoothly, remove some of those irritants that are not doing anybody any good. That is negotiable. And then outside the workplace, an endless list from you're checking into a hotel, always ask if the room you're going to be in is a noisy one. Or my dad always said he was in the tourism industry. There's no hotel that doesn't have an empty room in it, even if they say that, there's no space left at the end. So, many, many things outside of work are negotiable too, especially at home. So quick story I want to tell about that illustrates how important it can be. When After Women Don't Ask came out, Linda and I got an email from a woman who said that when she was first married, she was working a lot fewer hours than her husband. He was working all the time. She wasn't working as much. So she got in the habit of doing everything at home, not just the cooking and the laundry, but the, mowing the lawn and fixing the car. I mean, she didn't fix the car, but taking responsibility for the car. Everything that had to be done at home, she was doing. And then they both went back to graduate school. And in graduate school, their workloads were the same, but she was still doing everything to keep their lives running smoothly. And she started to fall behind on her work. And she was thinking she was going to have to drop a course when she broke her leg. And it was a bad break. So she couldn't push a cart to the grocery store. She couldn't push the vacuum around the house. She couldn't push the lawnmower. She couldn't stand at the stove for any length of time or juggle the laundry. So her husband had to pick up a lot of those chores. And very quickly she caught up and he started to fall behind. And he said, I really had no idea how much time it took for you to do all these things.
Mm-hmm.
So once she, got out of her cast, got off her crutches, they sat down and looked at all of the chores and tasks necessary to keep their life running the way they wanted it to. And then they divvied those chores up more equitably. I think in many cases, male partners in particular don't necessarily see everything that women are doing. And it's not that they're trying to scam you, they need to be better.
You say that again. It's not that they're trying to scam you.
They're not trying to take advantage of you. They really need you to ask them. And
it can feel like it sometimes, though, because I've been asking you to cook for a while. But so what I even love about just that early part of the conversation is that when we're at a stage where we're creating our perfect work, a lot of times that looks like a very radical shift. So even if you're a woman who is looking to step into entrepreneurship and maybe you're building a side hustle so that you can build up a client base or build up a product or whatever, and you're still maintaining a 9-to-5, there are lots of things that need to shift. And there are lots of negotiations that need to happen, perhaps both professionally and personally, that will support you in being able to do that. And I think for a lot of us, we don't recognize, sometimes we don't recognize it. B, we don't give ourselves permission to say, man, it's okay for me to ask for this shift. And that could be, 1 or 2 telecommute days that then you're not coming back and forth into the office, and that gives you an opportunity to do more of what you need to do with those hours that would have been commute time. Negotiating for different responsibilities that Sara mentioned. I was doing a talk at a company, and it was a big retailer, and so it was a career development type workshop, and one of the women was on the hot seat, and we were kind of talking about what she wanted to do next, and she was actually pretty open about it, and there were lots of changes going on in the company, so that level of openness was very welcome. So people were able to talk about what they wanted to do next, what they didn't want, without any kind of fear of retribution. And she was like, I just want to do, this, that, or the other. And I want to be far more creative and, than I am in my work. And, because she's an artist by nature, but she was very process driven in the work that she was doing and operations focused. Anyway, fast forward, the audience was giving her all these ideas around how she could actually position herself to step out and do something far more entrepreneurial. And one of those things was, hey, you could do a stretch goal in our design department and be able to learn how to design, whatever for the apparel and this and that and the other. And so just that idea alone, getting that experience would have filled a gap for her in the entrepreneurial space that made all the difference in the world. And so then literally she was able to go back that next week and start advocating for opportunities, right? And so for some of us, we don't recognize that if there's a skill we want to build that may be outside of what our job description requires, to your point, there's a way of being able to negotiate that, particularly if you've built up the relationship, or not the relationship capital, but the currency of having done great work already and having delivered. And I think a lot of us, we deliver and we build up the currency, and then we don't utilize it or use it and leverage it, for our benefit down the road. So I think that's awesome. Help me understand though, why don't we ask? Like, what is it about? What are the underlying beliefs or underlying causes? Because I know a lot of men that ask for all kinds of things, and I'm like, for real? You asked about that? You want me to do X? But for us, sometimes we are reluctant to do that. What are some of the underlying causes that you've noticed in your research?
Well, this is fascinating stuff. We actually think it starts the day a baby is born. One study showed that nurses and parents perceive little boy and little girl babies differently on the first day of their lives. They see little boy babies as more alert, physically stronger, more coordinated, and less in need of being comforted or picked up and cared for. Little girl babies more fragile, less alert, not as physically strong, and more needy. So the ways in which we perceive children, kind of folds into all our behavior, the behavior model, the ways in which we talk to them, the ways in which we talk about them. And this continues, you know, on a lot of different fronts. The toys that we give children, we typically give little girls toys that involve taking care of other people, baby dolls, kitchen sets, tea sets, you know, little doll houses. They're all about nurturing, taking care of others. Boys' toys more goal-oriented. I give him a train set. He wants the, you know, the bridge to, you know, split off here and the train to go through the tunnel over there, and then to, you know, regroup and, you know, whatever. I need this piece to make it do that. I need that splitter over there. Construction toys. I want it to function in this way. I want this to transform into that. This is what I need to make it happen. And significantly, boys' toys are more likely to involve imaginatively exploring the world outside the home, whereas girls' toys are more, you know, home focused. Chores, the same thing. Girls ask to give, to take care of younger siblings, to help mom take care of the family. Chores that are involved, that involve taking care of other people. Boys' chores typically involve going outside the home, go shovel the walk, go rake the leaves, go wash the car. They involve a little more independence, a little more initiative, you know, go figure out what you need to do it, come back when you're done. And most significantly to me, boys are more typically paid for their chores than girls are.
Interesting.
So boys learn that they work for money. If I do a good job, if I get all the leaves, whatever, I get paid. And girls learn that they work for love, which sadly doesn't pay nearly as well. So then we have also the books and the movies, the stories, the representations of boys and girls and men's and women's behavior in popular culture, what it communicates to kids about how we want them to behave as males and females. And what we communicate to girls is we want them to be good-natured and cheerful and sweet-tempered and compliant. We don't like bossy, grabby, selfish, demanding little girls. We teach boys to be little tough guys, to go out there and mix it up, get what they want for themselves. And all of these forces continue on through adolescence and into adulthood, convey to girls that they should wait to be asked, to be invited, to be praised, to be rewarded. And then they enter a workforce in which it's very clear we don't tolerate certain kinds of behavior in women. We don't like women who are too goal-oriented, too focused on their own ambitions, and we have a lot of nasty names for them. We call them difficult, high maintenance, not a team player. A couple other names you can probably think of that I won't, that I don't need to say. And so other women see women who are a little more forthright about their goals being punished, basically, not just with ugly names, but not being included in important decision-making, having their work evaluated, you know, based on their personal style rather than on the objective quality of their work. Other women see this and they decide that's not a good strategy. I should just wait and be grateful for whatever I'm offered, not rock the boat, and you know, see what happens. There's one more factor which is really critical, which has to do with networks. That women are either peripheral to or excluded completely from the social and professional networks in which men share a lot of information, give each other a lot of advice. Often the people in charge know of, you know, high value accounts that have just come in, or high profile projects that are, you know, prestigious, or, you know, will give an employee some exposure to people in power, or, you know, discretionary funds for training or travel. And they don't, you know, post it on a virtual or a physical bulletin board. They don't knock on the door of anyone who might be qualified or interested. They mention it to the people in their networks. Most of the people in charge are men. Most of the people in their networks also men. One reason men negotiate for things more than women do is they have more information about what they could be asking for. They have information about what's negotiable.
Got it. So then how do we begin as women to fix that for ourselves, right? Because for a lot of folks who are listening in, if particularly if they're thinking about making major shifts, they're shifting oftentimes into a space that may be even less familiar than the space that they're in. Like, I may have mastered over here. Now I'm looking to do a pivot. I may not have the network. I may have, you know, whatever. So beyond my talent and skill, how do I begin to even show up differently individually first, And then we can talk about the actions to do, but how mindset or whatever, how do we need to show up differently to put ourselves in a position where we can negotiate for what we need personally or professionally.
Well, the first step is always do your research. Learn as much as you can, not just, on the web where there's a tremendous amount of information available, starting with salaries. All the job finding websites have a lot of information about salaries, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. There are other websites that are focused on information about nonprofits or, the arts, whatever your field is. They're often very specialized sites, but they also have a lot of information about what's going on in the profession. And those are good places to start. But also, again, activate your networks. Don't let yourself be excluded from those men's networks. Find a friendly guy, somebody you think is willing to sort of escort you into his network or share information about how things work. And then be resourceful about where you might get some information. The one thing I often hear when I speak on college campuses is the career services and alumni organizations say, people don't use us enough. We can put you in touch with somebody who is in your graduating class or somebody who went to the same college who is in the field that you are interested in moving into, or is in the actual organization that you want to apply for, that you want to somehow get some access to. So people you went to school with, people who friends of yours work for, who they speak highly of, who might be willing to have lunch with you or, have coffee, somebody that you met briefly at a professional meeting that you could reach out to. Be resourceful and, cast a wide net in how to get that information.
I think I even we can back up prior to that as I was looking through your book. And it's a matter of really understanding what it is we really want. Right? Because I think sometimes we're quick to get out there and put ourselves in situations. And then when someone asks us what offers to help, or, hey, how can I help you? Or what do you need? We actually don't have an answer for that. Sometimes like, let me get back to you. And the moment's gone. Right? And so I think for a lot of women that are listening in, it's important to take some time, slow down, and really begin to evaluate, what do I really want here? Like, what would be my ask? So if I know that I'm looking to make a major shift, okay, well, what do you want to do? What's the long-term vision? What's the whole purpose of what it is that you're doing? Like, let's get really, really clear about that, because then you can go into conversations knowing here are the top 3 or 4 things that I need or that I want. And then in those conversations, be able to figure out, well, this person might be able to make headway on this issue. But if it's not top of mind for me to eat, because we got to make it easy. If we're going to ask, we got to make it easy for people to be able to offer. So what do you notice about the clarity that that we're sometimes coming into these conversations with to begin with? So I think there's a missed opportunity there.
Yeah, absolutely. I am a big fan of revisiting your goals regularly, because what you want when you finish your training or graduate from college or enter a field is going to evolve. You're going to see people you admire and think, I want a career like that. Or you're going to try stuff you thought you would love and find that's not that rewarding. It's not exactly what I want to do. So I encourage people to start by really revisiting regularly your goals, and not just what's your goal for the upcoming year. What are your goals 3 to 5 years out? What are your long-term goals? And then start thinking about what you can ask for today that will get you where you want to go. I once did a program at Credit Suisse, and this woman raised her hand. She said, aren't you worried people will get asking fatigue if I'm just asking for stuff all the time? And that's not actually what I'm recommending. I want you to ask strategically. I want you to ask for the things that are going to get you what you want. And what you want does not have to be what other people think you should want. It involves self-reflection and, whatever, a regular process of looking into what it is that you're doing and whether it is rewarding enough.
Yeah, I think that's critical, because sometimes it's not, and you say it actually in your book, I can't remember what chapter is, but sometimes it's not always more. Like, I don't always want more money or more opportunity or more responsibility or more title. We sometimes think it's up, 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 when in actuality, we may want more freedom, or we may want more more time, more time out, or I might, and so then as I start to look at what I'm doing in my home life, combined with what I'm doing in business or career, whatever, now I got no time. What can I negotiate off my plate with a spouse or with a support system or whatever that gives me more of what I need in order to be more effective in whatever the goal happens to be. But if I just think I just want to make more money, I want my business to grow, well, yeah, the business can grow, but I might need to get rid of a couple of things in order to have the bandwidth to grow. And so if I don't know that, then I'm asking for the wrong thing in the moment. I'm asking for more that I may not have the bandwidth to even sustain.
To do it.
Right? I'm sorry, go ahead.
That you may not be able to do it even if you get it, if you haven't asked for the other things.
Exactly. So the encouragement as folks are listening in is to begin to take inventory on what's not working or where are the pain points. And we may not know how to fix them in the moment, but those could become questions that we ask about, like that we're actually asking people, how do you manage for this? I'm a mom of a young child, and most at my age, mid-40s, most people have, a lot of people, not most, a lot of people have kids that are older, so they've been through this toddler stage. And so I need to be asking more questions around, how do you navigate this? How are you dealing with that? Because those are things that it can influence my success. Because I'm doing all kinds of stuff that maybe I just don't need to be doing. I didn't realize it because I'm not asking to do my research, as Sara mentioned, to even figure out if what my expectation is reasonable or unreasonable. Sometimes our expectations of ourselves might be unreasonable, right?
I do think, as a general rule, women do have high expectations for themselves, that we do think we can do a lot, maybe not do it all, but do a lot. And sometimes we don't need to do all of that. Sometimes there's, in fact, often there's help out there. But I just want to add, there are a lot of people in your life, maybe as in your case, parents whose kids are a little further along, who have solved some of the problems you're dealing with your younger child. At work, it's also true that there are people who have done things typically that you haven't done, or are resources, and people are usually happy to share their expertise, to give advice when they can, and they're flattered if you come and ask them, I really admire what you've done with your career, I really admire what you've achieved. Would you be willing to talk to me about some critical turning points and things put in place you needed to ask for that made it possible for you to do it?
Yeah.
And not only then do you get the information, but they're a little invested in your future. Maybe if they hear about something that could help you, or for which you might be qualified, or that they think you might be interested in, they'll send you an email, or they'll pick up. So ask people for guidance, input, advice. There are lots of people out there who can help.
And the reality is, some will, some won't. And I think we focus so much on the fear of the some that won't, that we fail to recognize that there is a lot of some that will, if we are willing to open our mouth. But you talk about important things that women can do to maximize their success in a negotiation. So let's talk about some of those things. Again, whether it's negotiating for money, whether it's just negotiating for resources or opportunity, or whatever the case may be, how do we maximize our success there?
Well, again, I always stress that the research is important. You need to know what other people have gotten, what they've asked for, what the range is. When women haven't done the research, they tend to ask for too little. Men ask for, on average, 30% more than women do. And one study showed that if you ask for 30% more, you have a pretty good chance of getting 10% more. So asking for more, is important, and you're not going to do it probably if you're a woman unless you know what the market will pay. So do your research, and then do some things like talk to the administrative assistant or the support staff that work for the person in power. Kind of sound them out about what works well for that person. What has worked in the past, and also what have other people gotten? Have other people asked for what you want to ask for and gotten it? Do as much of that kind of ground level intel gathering as you can beforehand. I'm also a fan of role playing. If you're nervous about it, if you're worried that the person you're going to negotiate with is going to, explode. What, you're crazy. That's ridiculous. Or they're going to push back really hard, or they're going to give you a blank look, or they're going to say critical things about a mistake you made once upon a time, or that they don't think you're ready. Get together with a colleague or a friend, a family member you trust, brief them thoroughly about the negotiation, what you're worried about, and then play it through several times. And get them to push your buttons to whatever, hurt your feelings, embarrass you, insult you, make you angry, what undermine your confidence, whatever it is you're worried about, and then practice calm responses that put the ball back in the other person's court. Oh, okay, so that seems like too much to you. Why not? Or can you talk about what you think would be fair? Or, all right, we're far apart. How close can you come? Maybe we'll meet in the middle. Let's keep talking.
Yeah.
You practice those calm responses, and not only are you prepared then if the thing you're worried about happens, but if it happens, the emotion it triggers won't surprise you because you already have the emotion triggered in the role play. And so it's much easier to say to yourself, that makes me mad, or I know that that's going to, destabilize me, but I'm not going to let it. I'm just going to keep going with my plan. It hasn't been me off balance.
Got it. How about, how important is it that we not take things personally, or in terms of the energy and the attachment that we come into conversations with, does that play a role in whether or not we're going to be able to successfully navigate through a negotiation?
Well, women often don't ask for as much as they could get. They don't ask at all because they're afraid that a disagreement about the meat of the negotiation, a disagreement about the issues at stake, actually represents a conflict between the parties. Okay. They worry a lot that they'll damage their relationship with the person they're talking to. And men are more like, it's just business. There's, funny stories of women watching men, argue and disagree and, whatever, storm off. And then half an hour later, they're laughing, at the copy machine about something. Women do take it personally. Mm-hmm. Now, it's a little trickier for women. Mm-hmm. If you're too forthright, too direct about what you want, you risk coming off as demanding or threatening or pushy. Mm-hmm. So a critical piece for women is how you ask, the style, the manner. Very, very important for women. So we expect women as a society, we expect women to be kind of warm and sociable and engaged with other people's feelings, experiences, whatever. We don't like it when women come off as too direct or too aggressive. And what we consider aggressive in women is obviously something a lot milder than what we consider to be aggressive in a man. Mm-hmm. So how you ask. Make warm eye contact, shake hands, use relaxed, open body language. Try to use a light, upbeat, cheerful tone of voice. If you can go a little easier on the interpersonal dynamics, use your social skills in that way, it will enable you to aim a little higher, go a few more rounds, and do a little better. And it will also make the whole interaction more pleasant. The style piece, I often hear women say, why should I have to, try so hard? Why should I have to worry that, the other person's having a good time? And it is dumb. It's an extra burden on women. But I put it out there for your consideration because I think you can, if you think of it as a tactic or a strategy to get more of what you want rather than, selling out your feminist principles, I think it may be easier to take that approach. Mm-hmm. And it can make the interaction more pleasant.
Got it. So you talk about location and timing. How important are they, whether, again, we're negotiating in a business context or we're negotiating in a personal context? How important is this location and timing? Tell us about that.
Well, let me start with timing. Timing is really critical, and I'll give you a few examples of ways you want to think about it as you're going forward. First of all, you don't want to do all your research, prepare, do your role play, whatever, and then go in and have whoever you're negotiating with will say all those decisions were made 3 weeks ago. Right. So you want to find out when is the best time to do it. You also don't want to do it when your boss or whoever you're negotiating with is in the, when his hair is on fire, when he's in the middle of a crisis or, busy putting out fires. So you want to pick a time that's good for the other side. You also want to pick a time, if you can, when your value is particularly salient. So you have just broken a really big down, or you just fantastic evaluation from a valuable client, or some initiative of yours was written up in the business press as impressive and important, or a client you work with is scheduled to renew and they only want to work with you, or whatever, you've had a paper published if you're in academia, something that clearly shows how valuable and talented you are. And lastly, you don't want to do it after you've been resentful, irritated, angry, you don't feel recognized, you don't feel appreciated, you sort of built up some anger about it, because if you wait that long, if you wait till you're desperate or really angry, you're not going to do that good a job in the interaction.
No, I think that's critical. I think for folks who are in entrepreneurial space or whatever, you want to ask on the high, like when you're on a call with a client and they're getting great results and they're so excited about you and this and that, that's when you want to tee up your renewal conversation, or your new contract to negotiate, or getting that review or that testimonial that you'd like to put on your website. Like, that's the time when you want to do that. Even on the home front, when it's been a good meal, a good dinner, a good good night out or whatnot, that might be the time to start talking about, can we renegotiate some things here? Oh, I thought I had turned that off. I'm sorry. Use that. But again, timing becomes critical when we want to get the result that we need. I think that's a very important element. Another question that I think is an interesting one here, when it comes to negotiating in person versus email, like I think, for some people, they want to hide behind email because then they can kind of craft their thoughts and this and that and the other. But what is your take on having the courage to, strap up and have direct conversations, even though that might feel uncomfortable or whatnot? Is email ever an appropriate vehicle for negotiation? What are your thoughts there?
Well, in person is always preferable for a couple of reasons. One, which is fairly obvious, is you have a lot more data if you can observe the person's body language. If they're nodding and smiling, that tells you one thing. If they're turned away, tapping away at their laptop or their keyboard and grunting, that tells you something else. So lots of information that you get. Plus, you can use your own body language, your smile, your social presence to your benefit. The other benefit of doing it in person is that you can kind of phase your asks. So most negotiations are about more than one thing. Mm-hmm. And you can start with something, well, what about this? And you think that's going to be a good, easy start, because they'll say, yeah, and you're on your way, but you might be wrong. Mm-hmm. So then you can switch to something else and come back to the other thing. You can kind of sort of read the room, read what's going on, and adjust accordingly. If you lay out your whole proposal in email, which is totally my instinct as a writer, I'll argue it perfectly, I'll bring in my data, I'll, supporting whatever.
You get it.
Put it all out there. Unfortunately, that makes it easier for the other person to reject the whole thing. Right? You've laid it all out. There's something in there they don't like. And in person, you might have seen them, they perk up, react badly to that one piece. You can move to something else. But if it's in there with everything else, they may not listen or hear or recognize the value of everything else. They might just Now, you can't always do it in person. They don't want to, or they're on the other side of the country, the other side of the world. You might have to do it over the phone. The phone is not as good. Mm-hmm. We all know people who have very low affect over the phone, even though they might be smiling and nodding. You can't tell. But you can still face the conversation. Mm-hmm. However, you'll find this out when you talk to the administrator or whoever is doing the scheduling. They may say, no, you have to email first or he's not going to talk to you. Mm-hmm. In that case, I suggest you write something fairly general that will make him want to talk to you more. Yeah. And I often, obviously not always, a general ask, not too many details, you can push back in the hope that that can
yeah, I actually like that a lot, because it's a lot easier for someone to say yes to something that does not feel overly complicated than to lay out, because just the visual of all that it entails, right. Have people saying no just because they don't have the mental bandwidth to even deal in their minds. Right. So I think that's a really great point. And so then as we prepare to kind of wrap wrap up the conversation, the obvious question is, okay, what do I do if I'm just terrified? Like, for a lot of us, if we're not prepared, like getting into that, one-on-one conversation, you can't remember what you want to say. And then you walk away and you think about all the things you should have said, and you missed your opportunity. So how do you deal with the inevitable anxiety that comes for most of us when we're in the uncomfortable position of negotiating what we want, even if the other side isn't adversarial or anything like that? It's just that fear of stepping in and really advocating for ourselves. What do we do with that?
Well, first I want to say it is perfectly appropriate and reasonable to have strong feelings about something that's important to you. Women often, oh, she's so emotional, oh, whatever. Put that noise out of your head. It's appropriate to have strong feelings when it matters. That said, not so good to take them into the room with you. So first of all, just going back to the role playing, if you practice, you know what you're going to say if the thing you're worried about happens. That can give you some confidence. I'm also a fan of collecting your CV, your dossier, your publications, any data that supports your argument that you're worth it. Any proof that something you've accomplished is important, your performance reviews, whatever, take it with you. You may not need to use it, but you would be surprised how often the people that we think are paying close attention to what we're doing actually miss something important, and then you can pull it out of your file and show it to them. Even if you don't need to, you have that pile of stuff there. It's kind of a concrete representation for you of how much you've accomplished. And then there's, data about these specific asks. Any, what am I looking for? Substantiating, supporting data, whether it's, market research or it's demographic research, or it shows that there's, an opening in the market, whatever it is that proves this is going to be a good thing for the other side. If they give you what you want, that's tremendous to take with you. For women in particular, in general, it's a good idea, but for women in particular, you need to make what we call a relational argument. If you give me what I'm asking for, it will be good for you.
Yeah.
My skills will actually help promote the long-term strategy and the goals of the group, the division, the company.
I think if there's anything, that's the crux of it, is what's in it for them, right? Because I know what's in it for me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if I give you what you want, you'll give me what I want, the old adage says, right? And for a lot of us, I think we might miss that. We line up our argument on all the benefits and how this is going to change my life or change my business or change my career or whatnot. But we really do have to figure out how does this become a win for the other person? Whether it's you're asking a client for a certain amount of investment for your services, right? Okay, I want to charge XYZ thousands of dollars for my service. Well, it's important to understand, well, how much value do I need to put into this package in order for this amount of money to be a no-brainer? Like, what do I need to throw in there so the other person sees that, yeah, I could do that, right? And oftentimes we don't. We just decide, well, this is how much I want to charge. Right. And then if the other person doesn't want it, well, that's their problem. Well, no, perhaps I've not put in enough value to justify what I'm asking for. And so in all of those cases, I think that point, Sara, is perfect. It's really having to think about the other side. Like, you got to stay on your side of the fence, but you got to jump over there to understand what's of value to them, what's important to them, what's the benefit, and how are you going to get what you want if you're willing to relax this requirement over here or give me extra time over there. How are you going to win? That's everything.
We call that making your value proposition. Talking about how what you bring, your special experience, contacts, talent, skill, credentials, whatever, will benefit the other side. Not, I have this degree and whatever. Not exactly what your credentials are on paper, but you have to kind of, organize it and present it. It's sort of like your elevator pitch. This is why giving me what I'm asking for will be great for you. This is the value I'm bringing to this situation if you can make it possible for me to do it. That's incredibly important. And I think women don't think about themselves in that way. What is the value that I'm bringing? It's really critical.
Yeah. So as we begin to wrap up, obviously in the spirit of generosity, Sara has set aside a special gift for all of the women that are listening, to this conversation to help you to better your negotiation skills. And so I'm going to turn it over to Sara to explain, and then I'll share with you guys how you can actually get access to it. So take it away.
Okay, so I put together a negotiation prep workbook. It's actually 16 pages, so it's not super long, but lots of prods to get you thinking about, all right, I need to collect this information. I need to make these decisions. I need to reach out to these people. This is where I can get the information I need. And if you work through it, you will enable you to be really very well prepared by the time you go into one of these negotiations. And it starts honestly with, what are your goals? What do you really want? And then how do they align with what whoever you're going to negotiate with needs and will value? And then walks you through step-by-step preparing, so that by the time you walk into the room, you're going to be in great shape. So I call it a negotiation prep workbook, and I think it's really useful.
Awesome. So right on this page where you see this interview, you'll see a link that's attached to that particular download. Connect with Sara, follow her stuff. These are things that we've got to master over time. Creating your work is, again, not just about the talent and doing what I love and all of that. Part of it is asking our way to the opportunities and asking our way to the resources and the support that we need. So I thank you so much for spending your time and your thought leadership. We are grateful. And I guess I'll speak on behalf of Sara for everybody that's listening, that we're delighted to share this content with you. Have a fantastic day, and we will see you on the other side. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.